on what video to make. Oh god, I can't be sitting like this during Pride! Good afternoon, jank enthusiasts! I'm MBT, and this is 10-minute testing. There's new Eldlich cards in the pack. Not much else to say. Damn, we might actually get this one done in 10 minutes. Presenting Eldlich.
No dick, no balls, and probably no butthole since this guy feeds on radiation.
So here's the list. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck is a one-stop shop for all things Yu-Gi-Oh! They're responsible for the pack opener that makes series like Progression possible. They've got strategy articles for those looking to flesh out their fundamentals. They're the most complete repository of deck lists and results from regionals and YCSs online. And they've also got cube and draft infrastructure that's finally seeing use now that Yu-Gi-Oh! Players have come to the light of Limited. There's a good chance that any Yu-Gi-Oh! Content you see on YouTube has Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck's many tendrils somewhere within its DNA. So why not go to the source and improve your game, draft with friends, or just see what 11-year-olds are playing in their Blue Eyes decks this month? Head on over to YGOPRODECK.com. Now back to the video. So with that, let's examine Eldlich. Eldlich is one of the easiest archetypes of all time to talk about. It's a series of continuous trap monsters, the Golden Land, that apply an effect if you've got an Eldlich on field, and the Eldlichers, which summon Eldlich from your hand, deck, graveyard, or ass. Each floats into the other, making for the grindiest control deck of all time. Unfortunately, the game has kind of evolved beyond this understanding of control decks. No matter what you're doing with trap cards, setting 5 doesn't cut it anymore, despite what the Argo Stars commenters on my last video would tell you. Even Labyrinth's making Fiendsmith. Which is why when I saw the new Eldlich cards, I knew the bar was pretty high in terms of what it would take to make these playable in anything other than a get laughed out of locals capacity. And make no mistake, these new cards are good. Exalted is an Eldlicher with Golden Land characteristics, and Fallen Angel is an extension out the ass, but is that enough to contend with the modern metagame? No. But we gotta do the video anyway. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First up, Eldlich, because what do? You play Floodgates. We are also on 3 copies of Inspector Border. You'll notice a distinct lack of non-engine in this deck. You kind of have to draw a critical mass of both Eldlichers, Golden Lands, and access to Eldlich. So the best we can hope for in terms of things that prevent our opponents from playing is things that completely prevent our opponent from playing, like Inspector Border. Even if we drew 9 off a Mulch Army, we can still only set 5. Anyway, we've got 3 copies of Cursed Eldland, 1 copy of Black Awakening, 3 copies of Delta of Invitation. You may not be familiar with this card. Let me read it out to you. When activated, this card allows you to send a level 5 or higher zombie monster from your deck to the graveyard. Already, it's Cursed Eldlands 4, 5, and 6. If a zombie monster is on the field, you can special summon a Delta token, Dark, Zombie, level 5, 0, 0, and if a monster is added from the graveyard to the hand, which Eldlich does, while this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand. It's kind of an all-rounder for a lot of zombie decks, but has a ton of really fantastic synergies, with this one being either infinite ammo for an Eldlich or a mechanism by which to get to him. We've got 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods, 2 copies of Extravagance, 1 Prosperity, 1 Card of Demise, and 1 Called by the Grave. For traps, we are on 3 Eldlichers, Scarlet Sanguine, 2 Eldlicher of the Exalted Golden Land. This is a continuous trap. You can pay 800, then activate one of these effects. Either special it as a normal monster. Then if you have Eldlich, you can bounce a monster on the field to the hand, non-targeting. Or you can set a banished Golden Land or Eldlicher spell trap. Now, all of them banish in order to proc their own effects, so theoretically, an opponent can eventually run you out of them. This is unlikely to happen, but not impossible, and this is a great way to be able to dip into that pool even after you have started a grind game. 3 copies of Conquistador, which is a pop, 2 copies of Walkera, which is a banished, and we are playing 1 copy of Golden Land Forever because anti-trap technology has really evolved since we last played the strategy. We're on 3 copies of Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon, 2 copies of the unsearchable but otherwise really powerful Dragon's Mind. When a spell, trap card, or monster effect is activated while you control a monster with 2,500 original attack or defense, Eldlich of course counts, you can negate the activation, destroy that card, and if this is in your graveyard, you can pay 25 to set it, but banish it when it leaves the field. We're on 2 copies of the Blackout Laughs, great to pitch off of Eldlich, and maybe play into an established board, 1 Skill Drain, and 1 Apophis, searchable off of our copy of Silhouette Rabbit. Now keep in mind, everything is searchable off of our Silhouette Rabbit, but this is a card that represents just a flat-out Omni-Negate, and for that reason, I think it's valuable. We're on 3 copies of Angelcado of the Golden Land, must be fusion summoned or special summoned from your extra deck by tributing a light zombie monster while you have an Eldlich on your field or in your graveyard. You can only special summon this card once per turn that way, although the other way doesn't give you an extra special, but it would have been too powerful. If this is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can special summon an Eldlich from your deck, extra deck, or graveyard. That is a hard once. The card you'll be summoning a lot of the time is Mad Golden Lord. That's right, we found a use for him. We're playing Garura, we're playing Chaos Angel, we're playing Verudris, Mirror Logic Aggregator, Bussy Phallus 2, SP Little Knight, Silhouette Rabbit, Flying Mary the Wandering Ghost Ship, which actually has a ton of applications. Allows you to target a level 5 or higher zombie monster, banished or in your graveyard, put this in your spell and trap card zone, then special summon that monster, and while this card is a continuous spell, you can target a level 5 or higher zombie you control, destroy a monster your opponent controls with attack equal to or less than that monster, and you can only use each effect once per turn. Finally, 2 Link Spider in order to cycle through our little golden lands. So with that, let's check out some games. Our first match is up against Tomb Keeper, playing a card I think is really cool, Songs of the Dominators. Our hand is really incomprehensible. I mean, every Eldlich hand looks like this. You just let your opponent go off and hope for the best. They're going to go Treasures into Apophis into Man with a Mark. Man with a Mark is going to allow them to get a copy of Temple of the Kings. They will go ahead and activate Treasures of the Kings in order to grab a copy of Circuit, then Circuit effect to summon itself to their side of the field, activating the effect in order to grab another temple. They'll set the temple and then flip up this copy of Apophis the Serpent, summons itself to their side of the field and allows them to set an Apophis the Swamp Deity. That can come out as well this turn, and then afterwards they can make a copy of Divine Serpent, which will allow them to reset one of those. Afterwards, they will pass turn. Let's see what we can accomplish. That's not a bad draw. We'll begin with Delta of Invitation, which is going to be met with an Apophis the Serpent. That'll summon to their side of the field, and then afterwards they can use Divine Serpent of Apophis to pop the Delta. No big deal. We already got our Eldlich rolling. We'll send the Black O Laughs and get back our Delta of Invitation, pitching it so we can pop that copy of Treasures of the Kings. We'll set 3 and activate Card of Demise. They will Apophis the Swamp Deity in order to negate it, which is miserable, but for the 3 cards we already have set. We'll go for the Black O Laughs, calling Divine Serpent Apophis. Then, after our opponent switches their monsters to attack position, we'll flip up both Eldlich of Scarlet Sanguine and Destructive Varuma Karma Cannon in sequence, putting their cards back in the back row. That's pretty funny, right? They're going to flip up this Apophis and this Circuit and this Man with a Mark before passing turn, and not a lot to work with, but we are grindy as all hell. We're going to set this copy of Eldlich of the Exalted Golden Land, then we're going to go ahead and activate Eldlich, setting this Foolish Burial Goods and summoning it to our side of the field. That triggers Delta of Invitation, which allows us to set the Delta of Invitation we'll use to send the 3rd Eldlich. Delta will trigger, we'll get ourselves a token, then go into the Fallen Angel. We'll go into a Link Spider, into Silhouette, into Angel, into Silhouette, allowing us to set an Apophis of our own and float into a Mad Golden Lord. We'll go to the battle phase. The Man with the Mark remains on field, but we can dome him for a ton of damage here. Afterwards, we're going to go to the end phase and pass back to our opponent, who will draw for turn a Pot of Extravagance they can't activate. They're going to go for Apophis. We will activate Eldlich. We will summon it as a normal monster. They will chain Apophis. We will chain Golden Land forever, closing the chain. Gotcha. Afterwards, we'll be able to bounce this copy of Divine. They will summon the Apophis and will trigger the effect of the Silhouette, popping the Torrential Tribute. We'll chain Apophis to negate that, summoning it to our side of the field, negating it, and showing just how grindy we can get. They'll go Link Spider into SP Little Knight in order to banish Mad Lord. No big deal. Treasures of the Kings, again, not a particularly valid consideration. They'll go ahead and get a copy of Anubis, but Anubis only searches the 1 card. They'll go for Man with the Mark. Man with the Mark is going to go ahead and get them access to Temple once again, and then they'll shuffle a couple of back in order to bring back this Anubis the Last Judge in order to walk over everything. Unfortunately for them, that's the best they can accomplish. They can go Silhouette in end phase, but we have to do so little in order to clean up this board state. I know it looks like we're massively behind, but don't worry, we're not about to be. We'll begin with Eldlich here, setting this copy of Delta, which hilariously triggers Delta. Then we will link off for a Link Spider, go Delta. We'll activate the Delta effect, which allows us to summon a token to our side of the field. Out comes the Fallen Angel, and we'll go into Flying Mary. Fallen Angel is going to trigger to get us the 2nd Mad Golden Lord, then Mary in order to grab us Eldlich. They're going to go for Songs of the Dominators, which is scary, but not the end of the world. We'll go Mad Golden Lord here in order to take this copy of Circuit. They'll go for the Apophis the Serpent in order to grab an Apophis the Swamp Deity and Silhouette Rabbit to pop the Delta of Invitation, but too little too late. We can get over the Silhouette Rabbit for lethal. That's how a lot of your games are going to feel. You're on the back foot the entire time until Inevitability kicks in, and you're able to dome with a pair of 3,800 attack point monsters against an opponent who stopped paying attention to the life total 14 minutes ago. For Game 2, unfortunately, I'm going to show off a huge weakness of this strategy. The lack of non-engine means some decks will just put up a board that absolutely blasts anything you could ever hope to build. Case in point here is Memento. Anguish into Natsunoto Shigo. Send a couple of cards to the yard, then Anguish cycle back the Mace. Mace here is going to trigger in order to grab from deck to hand a copy of Fusion. Fusion will enable an early Creation King, putting 3 back in order to go into the boy. We'll use Creation King to send a couple of cards from the deck and one from the extra to the yard, one of which is a Gatic summon. Use its effect to cycle back a Sleepy Sleepy, and then afterwards we can use the Creation King in order to get a Memento Migdalon. Activate the Migdalon, and then from here we can activate the Fusion and the Sleepy in sequence to summon the Sleepy, pop this copy of Gaddock, and then afterwards go for the effect of the Sleepy and the effect of the Migdalon and the effect of the Akihiron in sequence. Akihiron back in order to bring back the Goblin as well, and down comes Twin Dragon. Twin Dragon is going to pop for a couple of cards to the hand, and then activate its graveyard effect for Goblin, which is not yet triggered this turn. We are going to pop the Akihiron, which triggers the Akihiron and grabs back the Fusion. We'll activate the Searched Bone Party, pitching this combined creation for a Darkblade effect in order to grab an Anguish, and then of course we can link off for our Closed Heaven into a sequence. Sequence here enables a, summon of Baphomet, as one does. Baphomet here is going to send from deck to graveyard another copy of Sleepy into SP Little Knight, target the Creation King. Afterwards, we can go ahead and shuffle 5 of those bad boys back into the deck to bring a copy of Combined Creation out, set 2, and activate Migdalon at end phase in order to set the Bone Party as well. Now, I know it doesn't look it, but this is about 19 points of interaction. We're going to begin with Eldlich the Golden Lord. They're going to go Bone Party here, popping this copy of Combined Creation for an Anguish. Then afterwards, I'll activate the effect of the Anguish and the Akihiron in sequence in order to summon the Akihiron and grab a monster from deck to hand as well. We'll follow it up with the Prosperity, and unfortunately for us, I can see that Droll lurking in our opponent's hand, so this is going to be the last thing we get. We're going to go ahead and grab a Foolish Burial Goods. We'll go for the Foolish Burial Goods in order to send the Black Coat Laughs, and follow it up with the Delta of Invitation. I think probably after seeing that we are playing Eldlich, our opponent correctly assumed the cards they're going to add to their hand are a lot more important than what we can do. We'll go for Delta of Invitation in main phase 2 after dealing with the SP with Battle Phase, and then we will banish the Scarlet Sanguine for a Wakero, at which point our opponent's going to go for Baphomet. We will activate the Black Coat Laughs. They will bring back Creation King and Fusion afterwards in order to make a Guardian Chimera. Even after calling Creation King, they still had a way to pop our field. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing what else but Mitsurugi Raziel. This deck is really powerful, but thankfully we have won the die roll. We're going to begin with a copy of Cursed Eldland. We will grab a Wakero from deck to hand, and a Drollin Lockbird comes down from our opponent. Great news, we do not care. Let's go for Elixir Black Awakening into Eldlich Golden Lord. We're going to make a copy of Fallen Angel, trigger the effect of the Eldlich, sending this Cursed Eldland, then triggering Cursed Eldland's Grave Effect in order to send a Wakero, set 3, go to end phase, and activate Wakero in order to set our Exalted. We'll pass back to our opponent, who will begin, unsurprisingly, with Habakiri. Habakiri will trigger here to get a copy of Saji. Saji to the yard. They'll trigger the effect of the Saji to grab the missing piece. From this position, they can just go ahead and fire off the ritual. We will Dragon's Mind that, one of the most negatable cards in the game right now. They will go Prayers in order to pitch this Ame no Murakumo. We will chain Wakero so that it is no longer in the position it was when it was tributed and fails to meet its condition there. While it can't be summoned, it could have still searched. They're going to go for this Kusanagi afterwards into a ritual into Habakiri from Habakiri, and then they're going to grab a Magatama. Next up is Node Raziel. That's 2 4s, so we will activate Conquistador into a Magatama, which sends the Conquistador, but good news for us, we have the Elixir of the Exalted Golden Land as well. Let's bounce that copy of Kusanagi, then we will activate the graveyard effect of our Dragon's Mind as well. We'll draw for turn and should just be a hop, skip, and a jump to lethal here. We're going to go for Eldlich here, targeting the back row. Oh my god, it's called by as bad as it could be. Well, no big deal. Dragon's Mind can be activated here because we know the last remaining card. Let's just go for Rudris, activate Eldlich in order to set this copy of Wakero to the yard, and it's Golden Mary time. We're going to trigger the effect of our Fallen Angel, grabbing Mad Golden Lord, cycle back the Eldlich, Flying Mary in order to pop our opponent's last remaining monster and get in for 25, 38, and 3. All right, game 1 down. So it's time for game 2, and okay, we snuck a Mulcharmy in here. We'll go Perulia and draw phase. They're going to chain this copy of Prayers, pitching Habakiri that will grab them and summon them a copy of Saji before the Perulia resolves, which allows them to trigger the effect of Saji without drawing us a card. They will grab Purification and a copy of Murakumo as they move to main, using Ritual in order to get it to their side of the field so that I would have to contest any individual non-engine like Nibiru with an additional card from my hand as well, which they could probably overwhelm. They're going to bring back a Night Sword Serpent off that Ritual alongside a Kusanagi trigger to get a duo drive. They'll go cross here and then normal summon an ice. Last chance to look at me, Hector. Out comes a sword effect in order to grab follow-up. Then afterwards, they're just going to go ahead and overlay for a detonator, activate the detonator effect, then activate the effect of Ritual once again, cycling the Murakumo for a Habakiri, triggering the effect of the Murakumo, getting into their side of the field, and the last copy of Prayers as well. They're going to set 2 and pass. Pretty formidable board into a 7-card hand. Okay, right on time, Perulia. We'll lead Eldlich. They're going to go for Murakumo. We will happily discard this copy of Perulia. They will use the effect of Cross in order to negate it. We'll go for Lightning Storm. That'll be met with Purification. We can do something here. They'll go Habakiri. We are on Tartarus out of the board, so let's go Delta of Invitation after setting. So they pop one of the back row here. The Scarlet Sanguine will send this copy of Tartarus, trigger the effect of the Scarlet Sanguine. They'll go Detonator to wipe the remainder of the board, but we get to cycle it at end step. So we'll go ahead and grab back Conquistador, send 2, then activate Titan in order to grab both pieces of Spell Trap. We'll go to the end phase and then set a copy of both Elixir of the Exalted and Elixir of Scarlet Sanguine while our opponent has a 0-mat Detonator, but we can't beat the Murakumo on field because we no longer have a hand. This deck, man. So it's time for that all-important game 3, and honestly, I'm convinced the only way we can win is if our opponent bricks. Hey, look, our opponent bricked. Okay, well, let's just go ahead and lead with a copy of Delta of Invitation. We'll go ahead and send an Eldlich to the graveyard. We'll cycle this Dragon's Mind because, of course, we can set it later. We'll take that 2,500 gladly. As we activate Delta of Invitation, they go Fuwalos. No big deal. I can stop here. We'll set 2 and pass back to our opponent. They'll draw for turn. Ooh, another card that does nothing. They're going to normal summon a copy of Sword Ryziel and halt. Not so fast. What do? You play Floodgates. Prayers comes down next. They're going to go ahead and grab a copy of Habakiri. Habakiri effect is going to grab them a Saji. Saji will resolve all in graveyard, which means that it is going to be able to play through the skill drain, but it doesn't do too much. Just getting the ritual into a known copy of Dragon's Mind, which I'm all too happy to activate. They'll set 1, then we'll activate Wakero at end step. Let's go ahead and banish that copy of ritual so it can't get Kusanagi'd back later. We're going to activate Eldlich in order to target this last one. It's called by again. This keeps happening. Okay, no big deal, no big deal. Let's switch to attack position. We'll activate Delta of Invitation for another token. Go into the Lost Man of the Golden Land and trigger his graveyard effect for the Mad Golden Lord. We're just making big bodies here. Chaos Angel can be made with 2 of these tokens, and we'll get in for a ton of damage. Not necessarily lethal, but close enough. We'll activate Wakero at end step. That's going to grab his copy of Scarlet Sanguine, and we'll pass back to our opponent who draws for turn a Night Sword Serpent. Hilarious! Sometimes it happens in a deck playing this many bricks. Okay, let's go to the battle phase and walk in for lethal. Should have played less non-engine, like me. So we're back with the deck, and don't let that fool you. This deck isn't good. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1. The new Eldlich cards do help facilitate the Eldlich game plan essentially perfectly. Fallen Angel allows you to stick an Eldlich back into the graveyard, meaning you can re-trigger the graveyard summon again or add it to hand and use it as removal, while also allowing for rank 10 plays due to being able to access any Eldlich from the extra deck or graveyard when sent to the graveyard. 2, the deck does get some new generic stuff. Negates like Varudris, Ghost Mary's really crazy, Chaos Angel's in here. And 3, so we didn't do it here, but Fallen Angel allows for Eldlich to be a small engine. So Delta of Invitation and any spell trap is Varudris in 6 summons, meaning decks with a high spell trap count like White Forest can at least consider this as an extra end board piece or an Nibiru installation. And the cons. 1, man, it is still Eldlich. It's a deck from COVID era. It simply can't keep up with the multitude of stuff that other decks can pump out. Have you ever tried breaking a detonator with a deck full of continuous traps? 2, post-board, things get really bad. Lightning Storm, Harpy's Feather Duster, and God forbid the last people on the planet playing evenly are going to eat you alive. And 3, because you really need to be setting 5, you don't have much room for non-engine. So get used to cursing the name of Bestial Druisworm. All in all, I'm happy they're still making these cards, but this guy isn't conquistadoring anything beyond a locals anytime soon. So that's that. Thanks so much for watching. These 10-minute testings are made possible by, and occasionally suggested by, my patrons, some of whom have paid a fair amount of money to be mentioned at the end of the episode. Here they are: Elena Tincher, Alex Perea, Allison Elliott, Ally, Anthony S. Sierri, APK, Pearly Tier 0, Brett Henry, Cameron Noer, Cool Name, Damon O'Neill, Dark Rebel XYZ, Derpin Dragon, DJ Elefante, Emiliano Deverio, Envy Adams, Fabrizio Petroli, FPS Lord Derp, Garrett Ran, Hergalicious, Night Mary, Legal Rights, Luis Hernandez, Lullaby of Souls, Matthew M. DeRezzo, MBT Play Madolce, Mike Carlotti, N54 Lionheart, Nacho Gonzalez, Pombo, Project Mercury, Raymond GGEZ, Rohan Doge, Rose Lapine, Serpentax, Shelby Piet, Shifter.mp8, Sly Ninja 43, Soul CLG, Troy Says By Erasure is Gay, Who's Nick, Wonder Waffle, and Yuki Kazami. Couldn't have done it without you.